Hello and welcome to Watchdog Wargaming. Like many of you, I'm now pondering where do I go with my Boltaction Wargaming. I've got Korea, and I'm now starting to look at other areas of conflict that were post-war. One thing that's caught my interest was the first Indochina War of 1946 to 1953. Again, a very interesting subject. Lots of things on YouTube about it, so I won't go into great detail, but it's uh, you're looking at right from the very beginning, the Japanese fighting against the Vichy French, and then the Viet Minh guerrillas fighting against the Japanese. You know, they've been equipped and armed and trained by the Americans. Then, at the end of at the end of World War II, the Japanese surrendered to the British forces. And then, there's a few incidents with the new French colonists coming back in, and then you've got the British officers rearming the Japanese to fight the Viet Minh, and then finally you've got the Viet Minh actually fighting against the French. So it gives you lots of opportunities to actually use figures that you've actually got as your World War II bolt action range, and also lots of vehicles. Now that got me thinking, sort of like, what vehicles am I likely to see over in Indochina that were used during World War II? So I've done a little bit of research. You know, it might not be completely 100%, and there might be some vehicles that and modes of transport that I've missed out. But I think I've found pictures for everything to support everything that I've managed to link with. So I found a picture of of an item uh, that was used in Indochina, and I've put that with the product range that Warlordgames actually produce. I did actually find something very interesting that could have found its way the over to Vietnam at the time, and be quite surprised what it is. But I've left that right to the end, so you just have to wait and see what that is. So yeah, so people are thinking, okay, what is the Indochina War? Like I said, there's lots of things actually can go into great depth about it, but if you can think of this as France's Vietnam without the Fortunate Son theme tune and lots of Huey helicopters. Um, so what I'll do now is, as I say, I'll go on to some slides. You'll see the vehicles that are World War II or used in World War II, and actually the ones that what they've used in Indochina. Some of them you'd be quite surprised. Um, Here we go. First vehicle on my list is the M24 Chaffee light tank, armed with a 75mm gun. Our next tank is also a light tank, and that's the M5 um, light tank, also known as the Stuart, and that's armed with a 37mm gun. Next, we have one of our first wheeled vehicles, and that's the M3 White Scout Car. Our next vehicle has very similar components to the M3 White Scout Car, and that's the M3 Half Track. Our next vehicle is the six-wheeled M8 Greyhound, again armed with another 37mm gun. Returning back to track vehicles, we now have the M8 howitzer motor carriage, which is armed with a 75mm howitzer. It's an M5 light tank that's had the turret removed and replaced with a 75mm howitzer in an open turret. And of course, our next track vehicle is the M4 Sherman. There was a number of different variants deployed to Indochina. The M4A1, with the heavy SS suspension, and a number of the M4A3 Shermans armed with the 105mm howitzer. And now the first of our British made vehicles, and this is the Humber Scout Car. As you can see from the picture, it's been armed with a number of light machine guns and a locally sourced turret. One of the first French tanks to be brought back to Indochina was the R39 Renault tank with its short 37mm gun. The next vehicle is the Coventry Mark I armoured car. This was meant to be a replacement for the Humber and Damer armoured car used by the British, but until it didn't arrive until late 1945. It was armed with a quick-firing 40mm 2-pounder gun. Um, it arrived, as I said, too late to be used by the British Army, but a majority of them were sold off to the French, and that's why it ended up in Indochina. Our next track vehicle is the gun motor carriage M36, commonly known as the Jackson, and armed with its 90mm gun. And of course, the universal carrier, armed depending on local requirement and availability of heavier weapons. We now have the Panhard 178 armoured car, armed with a 25mm gun. Following the surrender of the Japanese in 1947, the French were able to use a number of captured Japanese tanks. These included the Type 95 Hargo with its 37mm gun. As the French forces did in World War II, they armed their jeeps with both light and heavy machine guns. Based on their previous experience and knowledge of the area, the French brought the LVT-4 Water Buffalo landing vehicle with them as well. A few of the water buffaloes were actually locally adapted to provide fire support by adding a 40mm Bofors anti-aircraft gun to the vehicle. The French also bought the LVT-4A landing vehicle, and this was armed with the 75mm howitzer, the same gun as the M8 Scott. The French were one of the first forces to actually use the gun truck concept by upper armouring 2.5-ton trucks with 40mm Bofors anti-aircraft guns to support their convoy moves. Finally, the French bought the M3 Lee tank as a recovery vehicle to recover any bogged vehicles or vehicles that have been damaged or destroyed due to enemy action. At the end of World War II, the French were able to recover and rebuild a number of Panzerkampfwagen Funks, commonly known as the Panther, and it was actually considered to actually take this tank over to Indochina to support the troops there. But the logistical nightmare of the shipping, parts and maintenance of the Panthers actually dissuaded its use anywhere outside of Europe. But again, if you want to do that what if, that's always an option. So hopefully that sparked your interest in the French Indochina War of 1946 to 1953. We've had a look at the mobility and where we can use the current World War II range of Warlordgames. But also as well, what I want to look at the next video is troops. So what troops we currently have that could be used or converted for French or the Viet Minh. And and that'll be for my next presentation. So don't forget to like and subscribe if you like what I've done. Please comment below if you've got any ideas, or please comment below if you know of any other manufacturers that make figures that could be used for the French Indochina War. That'd be great. So thanks for joining me. Much appreciated. You take care, and I will catch up with you soon. Bye for now.